Hersh, maybe sucks. It's a word that zaps energy. When I first heard maybe from a prospect, I got excited. I thought, okay, there's a possibility, an opportunity. And then you know what happened? I had to chase. And that is an energy drainer.
Yeah. And not only that, Nancy, but um, maybe more often than not means no. And someone is just not wanting to confront that no at that moment. And so they're kind of putting off a no, similar to when they say, well, send me some info. And I'm guilty of that too. Just well, send me some info. It doesn't mean I'm completely disinterested in the info, but it means I don't want to have a conversation now about actually doing anything.
Exactly. And of course, the other one is send me a proposal. That sounds even more promising, right? They're asking for a quote, a proposal. But without a confirmed yes, these activities will be an energy drainer.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and you allude to something interesting as well, which is that the personality type in your likability system
Mhm.
that's a 6, let's say, may want proposals. They prefer proposals. Let's say they like the ordered set of deliverables and so forth, but they have to get to that point where presuming the proposal is meets their qualifications, they're in. It's not like their first thing is send me a proposal. When I have dealt with what I now know are people that are a type, a 6. Um, when it gets to the point where they want a proposal, they're already serious. It's just that's something they really need.
I'm going to ask you an important question. Have you been able to discern the difference between somebody who casually asks for send me a proposal and that serious proposal reader? If so, can you share what are those signals that indicate that someone is the serious proposal reader versus the tire kicker?
That's a great question because it's taken some time to get to that point. But I do think that um, it when it's presented in a very offhand manner, almost out of nowhere,
Mhm.
then you feel like you're not really getting there.
Yeah,
In other
there's no
words,
connection
they
yet.
say, I say, well, here's what I do, and here are the benefits, and if someone says, okay, well, I have to go right now, so just send me a proposal, or we'll put in a proposal. Typically, what will happen is if there is interest, someone will ask, well, how does this work, or what happens with this situation, or do you ever do it this way, and they'll show interest, and then I'll say, um, yeah, and it's either I won't necessarily suggest it because I think when they request it, it's better. And then they would say,
I
"Well, could you
agree.
do me a favor? Can you put this in
It's
a
in
in a
writing.
in a proposal so I can look at the thing right in front of me?" And typically, um, we also can discern, at this point, well, let's set up a follow up. And I'll get you the proposal by Monday. Let's set a follow up for Friday. Then you can have the week to look through it. And presuming you like what you see, we might be able to do something. And they'll their enthusiasm will be free to come through there because they know they're not committing to anything. But if they were not enthusiastic, they
Mhm.
would offer some kind of resistance at that point. They would say, uh, well, I don't know, maybe, this is going to be a hard time financial, that stuff,
Or I can't meet with you next week,
or,
whatever,
or,
right?
or yeah, well, it's better after the
First of the
2020
year.
six midterms, but
So this is a key for
yeah.
our listeners to tune into because Yet, because it's very important, we waste a lot of time and energy. And actually, our topic today is, earned wealth respect, right? This is a program coming up on July 31st for those of you unaware. But it's important to differentiate between that person who is going along just for the sake of going along versus an interested candidate. And we who are so excited to grab hold of interested candidates, we may fabricate one out of somebody who's just being polite.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I have found that has worked in my favor is that I put people at ease in general. And I used to think this was working against me because if you put people too at ease, you're making them feel okay with saying no, right? And then you feel like maybe I'm actually encouraging a no because I'm getting them off the hook so easily. But what I realized is the safe space that I'm creating for them allows them to not be interested or to be disinterested, but it also encourages their interest if it does exist. So I think it works to make the person comfortable. If you really focus on make the person comfortable. I mean, if you're selling to them, they're you're their guest in that way. You're respecting their home. You're think of it that way, like the old days. You're coming into their door to door and they're letting you come into their home. They're welcoming you into their home. Make them feel comfortable with you, you know?
So true. I could talk a great deal about comfort because, in my opinion, from a neuroscience point of view, that is absolutely the first hurdle that all of us have to overcome. And that is to create a sense of comfort in the prospect. And by the way, this is happening on an unconscious level. That unconsciously, your prospect is evaluating whether or not you are friend or foe. And it's like I said, it's being done unconsciously. They're not even thinking through it, but there's a message coming to their neocortex, their
Yeah.
intellectual brain, saying, "Continue this conversation or figure out a way to exit."
Yeah. Well,
And
there's
hence that's
yeah.
where the send me a proposal, send me your brochure, uh,
Right.
whatever comes into play.
Right. And I think, the more specific that someone is, the more interested they are. That just makes sense.
So
So
let
when
me
they're asking,
piggyback on that
yeah,
because
yeah,
that relates to proposals. If you and the prospect are going through a conversation and they're asking those questions that tease out the specifics, the how we're going to work together, now that proposal is practically written. You don't have to invent the
yeah.
wheel because you and the prospect have actually written the proposal in that conversational moment.
Yeah, that's a very good insight. Um, the flip side of that conversation about comfort is the wealth respect issue, which is this is work that you've done on yourself before you get on the phone. So your value. If you know your value, when you go into these conversations, you're not going to be thrown by someone who maybe doesn't yet quite get your value or appreciate it. And that means that they need to understand it better. But this comfort level that you have both with yourself and with the situation of coming into this new person's world uh, are the two sides that have to be satisfied. Because what you don't want to do is to make someone comfortable undervalue yourself. Nobody wants to do that. None of us want to do that, but some of us have experienced that where we feel like, well, we really want to work with this person. We've heard make it as easy as possible. We've heard make the offer one that is too
Mhm,
stupid to turn down.
mhm,
Is too good to you'd have to be
mhm.
stupid to turn it down, right? Um, so that can lead us to start to undervalue ourselves. What's your reaction to that?
It's interesting you should mention that. I just had 2 hours. on two different, 2-hour blocks, 2 days in a row with my newest coach. And this was the topic, really, how to make offers virtually. And again, you need to start with a with an irresistible offer. He calls it an opportunity rather than an offer. I like that word. But for purposes of most people's conversation, we think of it as an offer.
Yeah.
But now reflect on the difference between offer and opportunity, right? Offer, okay, there's something concrete here. Yes, no. Opportunity, there is a certain level of excitement, anticipation, intrigue in that word opportunity that's lacking in the word offer.
You know what? Another word that you use that I have adopted is collaboration.
Yeah.
The you know, we're that's assuming we're past the point where we're establishing whether this is a synergistic conversation or a sales conversation, assuming that we're talking about an actual service that we're providing. But in some cases, and you can speak to the likability factor here, in some cases assuring the prospect that you're going to be collaborating with them on the outcome. This is not a service like you're putting money in a machine and something's coming out. This is a collaborative process.
Right. And as you know, that works very well for what I've labeled the number 4 buyer. And this is the person who is looking for relationships, teamwork, collaboration, as you said. They want to feel a part of a team and be connected authentically with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think ultimately this all comes back to this. What I did a call this week with a bunch of people that are appearing on season 7 of my Yes Brand podcast, and I took a new approach, which is to have the guests all mapped out beforehand, and then have them meet one another on Zoom. It feels much more like a docu series in a way. It worked out really well, but the idea was this concept of humanity and working with one another and working with people was a through line among all the different professionals from all different industries. And I said at one point, you know, some people are B2B, service providers. We are human to human service providers,
Yes.
and I got that from them in the sense that I feel this is all about that human to human connection. There really isn't another kind of connection in what all of us are doing. We may use technology to a great extent, but these things that we talk about on our show are really driven by human connection.
Right. So speak a little bit more about what we might anticipate on the July 31 event.
Thank you. Well, okay, so earning your wealth respect with humor and humanity, since that word popped up again, is going to be it's going to cover a lot of important points, like we talked about value, uh, being the prize in your own area of expertise. Nancy's going to be speaking. We'll have another guest speaking about reputation management and how our own feelings about that kind of influence the way we present ourselves. But ultimately, what I want the attendees to come away with is a sense of courage and excitement about their offers, their product, their service, what they provide, because it's a confidence building hour is how I really think I would describe it. Um, it's not specific coaching or here's 10 tips to do. It really is going to be a lot of interaction, a lot of networking opportunity, no selling. It's not going to be my thing where at the end I then make an offer or a pitch or any of that. I just like to alleviate pressure. I like to just, if I'm going to provide value, that's all I'm going to do. And I feel like it was something that had come up in conversations, and I felt, well, I should bring this to a forum and just allow people, because I did a poll on LinkedIn and I asked, do you want this, or this? And the wealth respect topic was by far the number one choice. So I'm
Yep.
doing that talk next. And
Yeah.
again, humor and humanity, because let's just like breathe a little bit, you know? And if we worry so much about what we're charging, if people are who's paid, what's doing, we're focusing on, I think, the wrong things. I think we need to focus inward, slowly kind of bring that out to the world. Don't rush to market, so to speak, with an undervalued product.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially talking about confidence because we exchange energy in the sales process, whether someone buys or they don't buy. There's been an exchange of energy, and when your energy is exudes confidence and you're the prize, you will do more selling. So I look
Yeah.
forward to that next time. And in the meantime, we invite you to return next week for another edition of Sales and Messaging. This is Dr. Nancy Zare, Sales with Soul.
And Hersh Rephun, brand transformer.